Hello everyone and welcome back to One Soccer. I am your host for today, Josh Deming. I will be joined by Gangue-Ruzic and Peter Galindo, and we will be doing a transfers special episode. It is that time of year, the seasons are coming to an end. Plenty of Canadian players have their contract expiring or are linked to different clubs, and today we are going to break down a ton of them. So hopefully you guys are excited, and if you are, let's get into the episode now. Alright everyone, so for today's Canadians Abroad episode, we are going to do a transfer special. That is because the season's coming to an end, contracts are running out, transfer rumors starting to come, and there's no better place to start today with Peter, Alex, and myself than with Jonathan David, because Jonathan David just came up and put up a massive season. 24 goals at the time of recording. He could obviously improve on that. He's been linked to the Premier League. He said that he's wanted to go there. He's been linked with Bayern, multiple clubs across some of the big leagues in the world. So, Peter, starting with you, I mean, what is your take? What does your gut tell you? Because that quote that he said that he can't see himself anywhere other than the Premier League kind of makes me think that that's where he'd like to go, but not necessarily where he may end up.
It's true. Now, when we look at his potential wage demands, the transfer fee that he's going to command in terms of what Lille's going to want to receive for Jonathan David, then England makes the most sense. They're the ones who can afford both. Sure, the likes of Bayern could probably afford the fee plus the wages, but then they have a salary structure. They don't want to disrupt that. They're pretty consistent with that. Even though tactically he'd be a great fit, that could provide some complications for sure. But I think the key thing with David here is that for the first time since he joined Lille, he is ready to make this move. He's been scoring consistently, which has been the biggest X factor, I think, for him in his first two seasons at Lille. He'd always go through long stretches without scoring goals or being involved in general. And this is the first season where he's put that to rest, which means he could be ready to take that next step up in pressure and playing for a big club. Does that necessarily mean that that would be the best fit? Not necessarily. I think there are some maybe lower level clubs in England where he could fit in pretty seamlessly and still have a pretty solid impact too.
Yeah, for me, I just think that there's openings elsewhere, and I think a lot of these rumors will depend on what Harry Kane and Victor Osimhen do, because I think those are players that are probably like 100 mil plus. I mean, Osimhen's rumored at 150. So Jonathan David's almost like that budget signing for some clubs. Like if one, for example, goes to United and one goes to Bayern, then David could be that alternative player that could potentially come in. So Alex, I do want to focus on the Prem just because of what David said himself. Where do you think he could be a good fit, assuming that, you know, a Kane or an Osimhen doesn't go there? I know that you mentioned Brighton before we started recording here today, but is there a club that maybe is in the top six, one of the big six that could potentially be a fit?
I mean, what is the big six anymore after that season?
Yeah, Newcastle's in there, yeah.
But yes, like just like Jonathan David's play style, this situation is very fluid, and there's kind of two ways of going about it, especially, you know, it's someone who's 23. He's kind of at that age where we saw with an Osimhen, you can still go from a club like Lille to a club like Napoli and then make another move later. And, you know, I think either it's you go to a big club and you establish yourself. You certainly scored enough goals in the top 5 leagues to earn that right. And I think of the top 6, Tottenham is the fit there. Just if Harry Kane leaves, you know, they're a team that's going to go out through a bit of a rebuild, it feels like, after last season. He would be a great, you know, player of that profile to kind of lead that rebuild, depending on who sticks around, who comes in. Just because you look across the top 6, it feels like a lot of them are either kind of set or, you know, got their eyes on bigger targets. You know, although I guess if Man United fails to get Osimhen, I would also love to see him go there. But if not, if he doesn't want to make that move up to, you know, a huge club, say one of the traditional top 6, as we call them, there are a few intriguing options. And I think Brighton and Aston Villa are two that stand out just because they've cracked Europe. Europa League's nothing to sniff at for Premier League teams. Just because you're getting Premier League opposition week in and week out plus Europa League, that is not a bad alternative at all. I'd say it's probably pretty equivalent, you know, to maybe playing lower level Champions League in a less overall competitive league. So I think a club like Brighton, for example, they've proven that if you come at 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, you can, you know, really kind of remodel yourself and make yourself attractive to maybe another move even down the road. Obviously, that is a very big if. And I think similarly with Aston Villa, just playing under a coach like Unai Emery and just his level to detail and how he's able to turn around that club, I feel like a guy like David could learn immensely. And I don't think that's a bad alternative at all if he really is prem or bust.
Yeah, Jonathan David will definitely be the Canadian transfer to watch this summer. One that may be put on the back burner for the time being is Alphonso Davies. His agent said that there seems to be some instability and uncertainty about the direction of Bayern and that they're going to put the contract talks on hold until 2024. We know that Manchester City and Real Madrid are interested in David, but for the time being, it looks like he's going to stay at Bayern, but his future is definitely a little bit up in the air. The next one is Tajon Buchanan, and this is a rumor that we've heard for a while now. And the number one club that I keep hearing is Inter Milan. Now, Inter Milan is a club that obviously is going to a Champions League final. They just won the Coppa Italia. They will be in the Champions League next season. It looks like they're balancing their books a little bit, but there could still be the opportunity that Dumfries moves on and Buchanan comes in. Alex, what do you make of this? Do you think this is still the best opportunity for Buchanan, despite maybe him having a bit of a rocky season in Belgium this year?
I mean, I think the interest has remained very clear for Inter since the World Cup. They've kind of stood out among all the teams that were interested at first. They've stuck out in terms of fit. They've stuck around in terms of just their consistent interest and pursuit of the player. And I think, it's clear that he very much appears to be a sort of Inter Milan type target. They have a history of, looking across the bargain bins, so to speak. And I think the fact that Buchanan would come in at only, 10, 15, 20 million versus some of the options they can get. Yes, they're in a Champions League final. Yes, they could get a good windfall from that, but they, due to their books and their situation, they're not really a team that spent all that much on players. They prefer to move them on, get the fees, and then, go for these types of Buchanans to step in. And at his age, 23, 24, he 100% fits that model and would be a nice replacement for them. If they win the Champions League or not, it feels like Dumfries is done at Inter.
Yeah, it'd be a massive step up as well, and it would be a system that I think that Buchanan could thrive in. Moving along now to Cyle Larin, I think this is a very simple equation. Valladolid stay up, he more than likely will stay, and if they get relegated, potentially still remaining in La Liga. What do you think?
Pretty much spot on there, Josh. They have one game left against Getafe and yet another relegation 6-pointer, and it's pretty simple. Win, you stay up, lose, and you're down. So this is going to be really the game that defines Larin's next step here, and rightfully so, because if he stays in Spain, great. He's at a club that trusts him and relies on him, where he's proven he can score goals. But if they go down, he's going to have to probably go back to Bruges and then find another club from there, and that could be pretty tough because, as we saw, him moving from Besiktas to Club Brugge, sometimes that next step isn't always pretty seamless.
And sticking with Canadian strikers, we're going to Ike Ugbo, who had a very difficult season, got relegated with Troyes. He barely featured. He is featuring a little bit now towards the end. There's been a few links, but Rangers is the club that stands out to me. Alex, what type of fit do you think that could be for Ugbo?
I think Rangers, of course, could be an interesting fit. I feel like for his style of play, a team like that's going to be kind of more of one of the top dogs in the league is going to suit him, because he's someone who, when you get him touches, when you get him service, he can hold up the ball for you, but then go get it in the box. And one tough part of playing for Troyes is they just struggle to hold on the ball a lot of games. So there's a lot of standing around, a lot of, walking. And he's not someone who's going to necessarily go and lead your press. He's not going to be someone who's active in that sort of way off the ball, where you sometimes have to be for a team that doesn't have the ball so much. So I love the idea of a ball dominant team like Rangers. If not, though, there should be some other options. I mean, I think the championship, just the activity, the energy levels, the amount of, back and forth that it could be would allow him to get on the ball a bit more. He's English, of course, that's going to help. And if not, of course, it's maybe a bit more of a stretch based on his, the lack of goals this year. But I feel like a team on a top 5 league could also take a punt on him. Just think the way Valladolid saw a struggling Cyle Larin in Bruges and turned him into a, almost double-digit goal scorer. I guess it's double digits if you prorated over a season. I think Ugbo could have similar potential based on the fact he scored 5 goals for that Troyes side last year. And it's someone where if you're a team just needing that kind of final piece up front, maybe he could help a lower-end top 5 league team.
Moving along now to the women's side of things, Cloe Lacasse is absolutely thriving right now at Benfica, and she's being linked to go to the WSL, head over to England, and the club that is potentially looking to sign her is Arsenal. Peter, what do you make of it?
I think it fits pretty well. They could use a number 9 like her. She's clearly outgrown Portugal the last few seasons. She's been a goal-scoring machine there. Making the jump to what we can argue is the top women's league in the world would be the next logical step. And quite frankly, she's earned it, even without maybe getting consistent national team reps. But this could be the move that really pushes her over the top as the team looks towards a post-Christine Sinclair era, maybe after this World Cup.
And another Canadian that could be heading to England as well is Julia Grosso, obviously thriving with Juventus right now. Alex, could this be a perfect fit because she's being linked to Manchester City?
Yeah, I mean, it's something where it's going to be interesting what happens. Obviously, this was a lot from January where Man City were pushing probably to help their Champions League push, which was unsuccessful. And they threw a big fee. And because of that, who knows if they'll go back knowing that they don't have Champions League. But I feel like she'd be an exact sort of player City needs to rebuild. They were quite stale last year. They've been such a consistent top 3 team. And the fact they kind of fell out, feels like they use a rejuvenation, and Julia Grosso at her age, her profile would exactly provide that. And, after a year and a half of Juventus, she's grown a lot, and, especially on the ball, off the ball. So it's something where, within the next, this would be a great summer for her to potentially make that jump up to an England, and like City would be a good club, if not certainly the year after.
And there is a trend going on here because we are still staying in England, and we're going to talk about Ashley Lawrence. Obviously, such a successful career so far with PSG. She's going to potentially go to a club that already has a few stars and a couple Canadian stars, and Jessie Fleming as well as Kadisha Buchanan. So do you think Ashley Lawrence could find success in England with Chelsea? What do you think, Peter?
I think so, and especially because Emma Hayes has been sort of experimenting with wing backs at times. Ashley Lawrence, as we know, is very good getting forward and also defending, so that there could be a tactical fit there, all the more reason. It's going to be incredible to see what she can do there, especially with a couple other Canadians in the fold there with Kadisha Buchanan and Jessie Fleming as well.
We have not left England yet. Deanne Rose got relegated with Reading, but Alex, it looks like she will potentially stay in the league. And for fun, I heard that you think Tottenham could potentially be a good fit for her.
Absolutely. I think it's, a move is coming. I feel like that feels safe to say. She signed a 2-year deal back in 2021. That's expired. She's more than proven at Reading that she can play in the top flight. They missed her greatly this year, suffered an injury very early in the season, didn't return till, pretty much the last game of the year. You look at that, the fact that she has a World Cup coming up where, she should play hefty minutes for Canada, can only boost her stock more. England, I think, is the natural fit, given that she's just proven herself there, and why move? And I think a club like Tottenham could be a good fit. One of those clubs who maybe wants to push, and push the likes of Chelsea and United, and Arsenal at the top of the table. I feel like a club like Tottenham could use a player like Deanne Rose, who's so dangerous out wide, and her game has matured and grown a lot since she's turned professional, because we already knew the physical tools she had, and her ability to go 1v1, and now you add in her defending, her chance creation, her shooting. I think it would be good to go into a club like Tottenham and help them push for that top 3.
Moving along now to our quick hit section of this transfer special. We're going to start with David Wotherspoon, who will not be offered a contract by his hometown club, St. Johnstone. He will be leaving as a free agent. My assumption, after a very successful stint in Europe, winning multiple trophies with St. Johnstone, is he may stay in Scotland. I don't know which club could potentially offer him a role, but if not, maybe, heading over to the CPL could be an option for him. Probably just about any club could use his services. So it'll definitely be interesting to see where Wotherspoon may go.
Atiba Hutchinson's contract with Besiktas is up, so he now has no club after June. Now, he could ultimately retire after having a very busy summer with the Canadian national team, right on the high with a potential trophy or two, and then maybe move into an administrative role. He's been offered them in the past by PSV and Besiktas. Perhaps he could also go into coaching too, so the sky's the limit for Atiba.
Junior Hoilett's Reading got relegated to EFL League One. They've offered him a new contract, so he could stick around, although he is one to watch, as feels like he still has, at the very least, championship level in him. By his numbers, by what we saw, it looked like he could still definitely do a job in that league for years to come. So a team maybe needing a bit of veteran presence out in the wing. He also played wing back. Would be smart to look at Junior Hoilett.
With Scott Kennedy's Jan Regensburg relegated, that means Kennedy is likely going to be on the move. He was linked to some moves quietly last summer, and I imagine just with his pedigree and knowledge of the division, he could end up getting another offer in the second Bundesliga or potentially somewhere else in Europe with that German passport of his. Yet another loan and another return to Wolves is in store for Theo Corbeanu. That is now 4 loans in 2 seasons where he just hasn't really gotten consistency, whether it's due to injury, being played out of position, or just not impressing enough. with him turning 21 very shortly. This next move, whether it's to the championship in England again or it's elsewhere on the continent, this is going to be massive towards his development because Lord knows he needs to be playing consistently at this age.
That is all the time we have for in this edition of Canadians Abroad. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to tune in for next week's update.